"Where's your lawyer, son?" The courtroom went silent. All eyes turned to the small boy standing beside his mother. His shoes barely touched the floor beneath the bench, and he had to push up the sleeves of his oversized hoodie to hold his mom's hand tighter. He looked straight at the judge, voice steady but soft. "I'm my mom's lawyer, Your Honor." Gasps echoed. A few people laughed in disbelief. But one person didn't laugh, the judge. He adjusted his glasses, leaned forward, and stared at the boy like he wasn't sure if this was some kind of joke or the beginning of something bigger than anyone in that room could understand. "Before I continue, let me know where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us to bring you more real-life stories like this one." 2 weeks earlier, the sun was setting over Colby Town, a place that had once been proud but now stood tired. Paint peeled from old buildings, and sirens passed more often than smiles. Life wasn't easy here, especially not for Maria Alvarez, a single mom working 2 jobs and barely keeping the lights on. She rushed into their tiny apartment that evening, keys jangling, uniform soaked in sweat from a long shift at the diner. The rent was due. The fridge was half empty. Her feet ached, and her heart felt heavier than her hands. "Eli," she called out. "In here, Mama." Her 10-year-old son answered from the small table where he sat reading an old, worn-out law book he found in the school's donation box. He had no tablet, no gaming console, but he had imagination and questions bigger than most grown-ups asked. Maria kissed the top of his head and forced a smile. "You hungry, baby?" "We can eat later," Eli said. "I want to tell you about something I read today. This guy in court, he defended himself without a lawyer." Maria chuckled softly. "Is that so? That's brave." "Yeah." Eli grinned. He won, too. Before she could answer, a hard knock pounded on the door. Her smile disappeared. She opened it to find a man in a cheap suit holding a thick envelope. His tone was flat, rehearsed. "Court summons. You've been served." Maria's hands shook as she took the envelope. Her lips moved, but no words came out. He left without another word. Eli ran to her side. "What's wrong, Mama?" She dropped to her knees and opened the envelope. It was worse than she imagined. Her landlord was taking her to court, claiming she owed back rent and violated her lease. But Maria knew she had paid every cent, even when it meant skipping meals. The paper said she had 2 weeks to respond or be evicted. She collapsed onto the couch, silent tears running down her face. "We're going to lose our home," she whispered. "I can't afford a lawyer." Eli sat beside her. "Then I'll help you." "Baby, this is grown-up stuff," Maria replied, wiping her tears. Eli stood up. "Mama, what if I was your lawyer?" Maria tried to smile through the pain. "That's sweet, but that's not how it works." Eli didn't answer. He went to his room, pulled out his notebook, and opened that old law book again. That night, while his mother cried quietly into her pillow, Eli stayed up reading until his eyes burned. He watched videos on YouTube about courtroom procedures. He wrote down terms like objection, motion to dismiss, and burden of proof. He didn't understand everything, but he was learning. And more importantly, he wasn't afraid. In the days that followed, Eli became a boy on a mission. Every afternoon, he rushed to the public library, where the kind old librarian Miss Janine helped him print free legal forms. He asked questions. He took notes. He even started watching courtroom drama shows, repeating the phrases out loud. His favorite was, "I object, Your Honor." Maria watched in confusion as her son practiced in front of the mirror, using a hairbrush as a microphone and a coat rack as a judge. She tried to stop him. "I appreciate what you're doing, Eli, but this is too much. You should be playing outside, not studying court files." Eli looked up. "Mama, I don't want to see you cry again. I don't want to lose our home." Her heart broke. She had no strength left to fight, so she let him study. It was cloudy that morning. Maria wore her best clothes, a faded blouse and jeans that barely fit. Eli wore a clean shirt, combed his hair neatly, and clutched a blue folder filled with everything he had prepared. As they approached the courthouse, people stared. Security almost stopped him at the door. "You sure this boy is part of the case?" Maria nodded nervously. "Yes." He's my lawyer. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with murmurs. The opposing lawyer smirked when he saw them, but Eli wasn't afraid. He stood straight. He held his folder like it was a sword. He looked around and found the judge's bench, then walked toward the front row and waited beside his mother. The judge entered the room, and the crowd stood. All rise to the Honorable Judge Keller. As the judge took his seat, he flipped through the case file. "Maria Alvarez?" he asked. "Yes, Your Honor," Maria said softly. "I see you have no counsel listed. Do you have a lawyer present?" Eli stepped forward. His voice didn't shake. "I'm my mom's lawyer, Your Honor. What would you do if your child stood in a courtroom to protect you? Stay tuned, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more powerful, real-life stories that prove courage can come in the smallest form. The courtroom held its breath. The judge looked down over his glasses, puzzled. "Excuse me, young man." Eli didn't flinch. His voice, steady clear, echoed in a room that suddenly felt twice as quiet. "I'm my mom's lawyer, Your Honor." The opposing attorney, a sharp-suited man named Mr. Callahan, leaned over and smirked. "Your Honor, this is ridiculous. Is this a joke? That boy doesn't even look old enough to ride a roller coaster." Scattered chuckles erupted in the room. Maria gripped her son's hand tightly, her face pale with fear and embarrassment. "Eli, maybe we should just—" "No, Mama," he whispered. "I got this." Judge Keller banged his gavel once, silencing the courtroom. "Let's all take a breath. Young man, what's your name?" "Eli Alvarez." "And how old are you?" 10, sir." The judge scratched his chin and exhaled deeply. "Well, Eli Alvarez, I've been sitting on this bench for almost 3 decades, and I've never had a 10-year-old claim legal representation." More laughter. Eli didn't blink. "But—" The judge continued, "This is small claims court, and while this is certainly highly unusual, there's technically no law saying who can or cannot speak on behalf of the defendant, especially if the defendant allows it." He turned to Maria. "Ma'am, are you willingly allowing your son to represent you in this case?" Maria's voice trembled. "Yes, Your Honor, if you'll allow it." Keller raised a brow. "I'll allow it for now. But if this becomes disruptive or wastes the court's time, I will end it. Understood?" Eli nodded. "Yes, sir." Eli stepped forward, placing his blue folder on the table in front of him like it was a lawyer's briefcase. Across from him, Mr. Callahan scoffed and rolled his eyes. "Your Honor, I motion to dismiss this farce before it begins." "Overruled," Judge Keller said calmly. "Let the boy speak." Eli opened the folder. He took a deep breath and looked at the judge, not the crowd. "My mom has lived in her apartment for 6 years. She's paid rent every single month. We even have receipts, printed from her landlord's own email. But a few weeks ago, she got a notice claiming she hadn't paid for 3 months. He pulled out a paper and held it up. This is the rent receipt from 2 of those months, dated and signed. Judge Keller took the paper and examined it. Callahan leaned forward, likely forged. Eli didn't flinch. "We also have bank statements showing the rent was paid digitally through transfer. The money left my mom's account and went straight to the landlord's business account." The courtroom murmured. The judge raised an eyebrow and gestured. "Let's see those." Eli passed them up. Callahan stood. "Your Honor, if I may—" "You'll have your turn, Mr. Callahan. Sit down." Eli continued. "My mom works 2 jobs. She never missed a payment. She even gave up on buying herself new shoes last year so she could make the rent after I got sick and she missed a shift." The words hung in the air like a weight. Maria looked down, tears slipping from her eyes. "But this case isn't just about rent," Eli added. "It's about truth. It's about someone trying to take away our home because we can't afford a lawyer, because we're easy to push around." The judge looked at him for a long moment, silent. Then he said, "You may cross-examine the plaintiff's representative." Eli turned to Callahan. Callahan smirked, already rising with his file in hand. "Mr. Alvarez, do you know what default clause means in a lease agreement?" "Yes. It's the part that allows a landlord to take action if a tenant breaks the lease. Very good, he said sarcastically. And according to your mom's lease, a missed rent payment qualifies as breach of contract, does it not? Yes. Callahan stepped closer. Then isn't it true that even if your mother missed one payment, eviction proceedings will be valid? Eli flipped a page in his folder. Yes, but she didn't miss any payments. Callahan gave a dry laugh. You keep saying that, but the landlord's financial records say otherwise. Eli looked up. Did your client submit bank statements showing my mom didn't pay? Callahan froze. The judge looked curious. Well, Callahan cleared his throat. No, but that's not necessary. Actually, Eli said, it is. According to State Code 43B, subsection 5, if the payment was made electronically, then only financial proof can confirm non-payment, not just landlord statements. Judge Keller tilted his head. Where did you find that? Library website. Eli replied. The courtroom went silent again. Suddenly, Maria stood up. Please, Your Honor, maybe we should stop. He's just a boy. I don't want him humiliated. Sit down, ma'am, the judge said gently. Your son is doing just fine. Eli turned to her. Mama, don't be scared. You believed in me every day. Let me believe in you now. Tears streamed down her cheeks. The judge called a short recess. As people filtered out for a break, Maria pulled her son into a hug. I don't deserve this kind of love, she whispered. You shouldn't have to fight battles like this. Eli looked up at her. Then let me win it for you, so you never have to fight alone again. During the break, Callahan sat alone at his bench, clearly rattled. He hadn't expected this. A kid pulling legal codes and cross-examinations out of a backpack? He returned to court more aggressive. Your Honor, the defense's argument is charming, but let's be real. This is an emotional plea, not a legal defense. Judge Keller adjusted his robe. I disagree. This court isn't only about legalities. It's about justice. Continue, Eli. Eli nodded and opened a second folder. Your Honor, I'd like to submit new evidence. Photographs of the apartment showing multiple maintenance issues. These were used as intimidation. The landlord stopped fixing things as soon as we received the notice. It's an attempt to push us out. He held up photos, broken locks, cracked ceilings, and black mold under the sink. Gasped again. But the final document sealed the courtroom in silence. A copy of a text message from the landlord's assistant, accidentally sent to Maria. It read, Once she's out, we'll gut the place, paint over the mold, and double the rent. She's poor, she won't fight. The judge leaned back slowly. Where did this come from? My mom's phone. The message was never deleted. Callahan's face turned red. Your Honor, that could have been faked. We can verify the phone number, Judge Keller replied, and subpoena the original phone if needed. Callahan sat down. Hard. Maria could barely breathe. Her son, her baby, was standing tall, unshaken and winning. She wasn't alone anymore. The courtroom had shifted. People now looked at Eli not with humor, but with respect. Whispers rippled through the room. He's amazing. He might win this. That's a special boy. One woman in the back row wiped tears from her cheeks. She looked familiar, but no one paid her much attention. Yet, if you believe that even a child can stand up for what's right, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more powerful stories that prove courage comes in all sizes, and justice sometimes wears sneakers. The courtroom was still. Judge Keller sat quietly on his bench, reviewing the final pieces of evidence Eli had submitted. The gallery was packed. People now whispering with curiosity, not mockery. No one could believe what they were seeing. A 10-year-old boy standing in front of a judge, defending his mother like a seasoned lawyer, and actually winning. Maria sat at the defendant's table, her hands trembling in her lap. Her heart pounded, not from fear anymore, but from something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The judge cleared his throat. This court will now resume its session in the matter of Alvarez versus Dutton Properties. He looked over his glasses at the defense table. Eli Alvarez. Do you have any further statements? Eli stood again. clutching his blue folder that now looked worn and wrinkled from all the flipping and carrying. Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call my final witness, my mom. The room shifted. Maria's eyes went wide. Me, she whispered. Eli nodded. You're the one who lived this. You're the one they tried to silence. I just want the court to hear your truth. Judge Keller leaned forward. Mrs. Alvarez, do you wish to testify? Maria stood slowly. Yes, Your Honor. I do. Maria stepped into the witness stand. The bailiff swore her in. Her voice trembled at first, but then something shifted. She spoke, and every word hit like a stone. I worked 2 jobs, one as a waitress in the morning and another cleaning offices at night. I barely sleep, but I do it for one reason, so my son can eat, learn, and never feel less than anyone. She paused, holding back tears. I always paid my rent, even when we had nothing left for ourselves. I kept every receipt. I saved every penny. And still, my landlord tried to push us out. Judge Keller nodded. Why do you think he did that? Maria's jaw tightened. Because we're poor. Because we don't complain. Because we don't matter. Silence. Tears streamed down faces in the courtroom. Then Maria added one last thing, her voice rising with emotion. But today my son stood up, not just for me, but for every mother who's ever been told she's not enough. Eli watched her, eyes wide with pride. Just when the room began to settle, the unexpected happened. The landlord, Mr. Dutton, stood up from the plaintiff's bench. His face was red, angry, shaking. He pointed at Maria. She's lying. She's playing victim. These people like her, they know how to twist everything and make you the bad guy. The judge raised his hand. Mr. Dutton, sit down. But Dutton kept going, shouting now. This building costs money. I have bills. I did what I had to do. She's not even worth the unit she's in. The entire room gasped. Eli slowly turned and faced him. Did you just say my mom isn't worth her home? Dutton froze. Callahan, the lawyer, looked horrified and whispered, Sir, please stop talking. But it was too late. Judge Keller banged his gavel. Mr. Dutton, that outburst may have just cost you this case. Everything you just said is on record. Dutton sat down, defeated. Then, from the back of the courtroom, a soft voice spoke up. Your Honor, may I say something? Everyone turned. It was the elderly woman who had been sitting quietly through all 3 days of the trial. Gray hair tied in a bun, a long beige coat wrapped neatly around her shoulders. She looked like someone's grandma, until she pulled out a legal badge from her purse. I'm Dorothy Hale, retired federal attorney, former associate to the United States Supreme Court. Gasp again. She walked forward with surprising authority. I've been watching this case, and I've never seen such poise, clarity, and raw justice from someone so young. This boy has presented a better case than many trained attorneys I've seen in my career. She turned to the judge. If the court will allow, I'd like to co-sign his findings. Every document he submitted follows proper evidence code, and his argument is logically sound and morally right. Judge Keller blinked. I don't think there's any rule against that, he said, stunned. Callahan buried his head in his hands. The judge looked around the room. He saw the trembling mother, the brave boy, the bitter landlord, and a courtroom full of people who had just witnessed something that didn't happen every day. He picked up his gavel. This court has reviewed all evidence, listened to both sides, and considered the conduct and character of all involved. He looked directly at Eli. Young man, I don't know where your strength comes from, but today you reminded us all what justice looks like. He banged the gavel once. This court rules in favor of the defendant, Maria Alvarez. The eviction notice is dismissed. All legal costs are to be paid by the plaintiff, Mr. Dutton. The room erupted in applause. Maria covered her face and cried. Eli sat down slowly, as if the adrenaline had just left his little body. Outside the courtroom, people waited. Reporters, local TV, curious strangers. They all want to know more about the boy lawyer, who just took down a greedy landlord in open court. A microphone was pushed toward Eli. How did you do it, kid? Who taught you all this? Eli looked up. No one. I just want to protect my mom. Another reporter asked, "What's next for you?" He smiled. "I want to be a real lawyer one day, so I can help people like us who don't have money but still deserve justice." Maria stood behind him, holding his shoulders, crying and smiling at the same time. Later that night, back in their apartment, Maria opened her small mailbox and found a thick envelope. It was from the Young Justice Foundation. Inside, a full scholarship offer for Eli to attend a private legal prep academy. Tuition, supplies, transportation, all covered. A letter from the foundation's director read, "We saw the video of your son in court. His mind, heart, and courage are exactly what the world needs more of. We'd be honored to support his journey." Maria fell to her knees. Eli looked up, holding her hand. Mama would be okay. 3 days later, the courtroom that had once been filled with gasps and doubt was now on the front page of every newspaper in Colbytown and beyond. The headline read, "10-year-old boy defends mom in court and wins. Justice doesn't always wear a suit." TV reporters showed up outside the apartment building. Strangers left flowers and thank you notes at Maria's door. The story had gone viral. People around the country were calling Eli a hero, a genius, and some even said America's youngest offender. But to Maria, he was just her son, her miracle. The living room was quiet that morning. A hot cup of coffee steamed beside Maria as she stared at the open scholarship letter on the table. Eli sat on the floor in his pajamas, reading another law book with a highlighter. Knock, knock. Another letter slid under the door. Eli picked it up and read the gold seal. "The Hastings School of Law and Leadership," he said aloud. "That's the big fancy one from TV, right?" Maria nodded slowly. He opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "Eli, we saw your story. You have the makings of a great legal mind and an even greater heart. If you're willing, we'd like to reserve a seat for you in our Young Scholars Program for future legal leaders of America." Eli looked up. "Is this real?" Maria was crying again, this time with a smile. "Yes, baby, it's real." Days turned into weeks, and life slowly began to change. The landlord, Mr. Dutton, was fined not only for wrongful eviction, but also for code violations on several other units. He was ordered to refund rent to multiple tenants and faced a potential civil lawsuit for harassment and neglect. Callahan, the smirking attorney, let's just say he wasn't hired again by anyone in Colbytown. In fact, he moved 2 counties away. As for Judge Keller, he gave a personal statement to the local news. "In all my years on the bench, I've seen lawyers with degrees fail to make the arguments this child made. He reminded us all that justice isn't about power. It's about truth." One afternoon, Eli and Maria were invited to a quiet lunch at a park downtown. Waiting at the table was Dorothy Hale, the retired federal attorney who had stood up for Eli in court. She greeted them warmly and placed a gift-wrapped box in front of Eli. "What's this?" he asked. "A tradition," she smiled. "The first law book I ever owned. It was given to me by my mentor. Now I'm giving it to you." Inside was a worn, leather-bound copy of the People's Law Guide. The corners were bent, the pages filled with handwritten notes and bookmarks. "I want to mentor you," she said. 1 hour a week. Lessons. Real legal theory. It won't be easy." Eli beamed. "I want that more than anything." On the first day of his new school, the Young Scholars Legal Academy, Eli wore a neatly ironed shirt, a backpack with fresh notebooks, and the old law book tucked under his arm like a prized sword. Maria walked beside him to the school gates, her eyes wide at the stone building and polished glass. "You nervous?" she asked. "A little," he admitted. "But you'll be proud of me?" She stopped and knelt down in front of him. "Eli, you could sit in front of 1,000,000 people and say nothing, and I'd still be proud of you. But what you did, for me, for our home, you changed our lives. And not just ours. You reminded people everywhere that no matter how small your voice is, it matters." He nodded, trying not to cry. He was supposed to be strong. But even warriors need to cry sometimes. That night, back at home, Maria received a phone call. It was from a major law firm in the city, Towers and Blake, LLP. They had heard her story, seen Eli's defense, and were moved. "We have an opening for a file clerk." The voice said, "No law degree required. Just someone honest, hardworking, and organized." Maria's hand shook as she replied, "I'd be honored." For the first time in years, she wouldn't be scrubbing toilets at midnight or begging for shift changes. She'd be working in a real law firm, surrounded by people who saw her worth, not just her struggles. A few months later, Maria and Eli were invited back to the same courtroom, this time not to defend a case, but to speak to other families struggling with housing injustice. The courtroom was packed again, but this time with supporters, with mothers, fathers, and kids who had seen the story online and traveled hours just to meet the boy who gave them hope. Maria stood before the crowd. "I used to believe that silence kept you safe," she said. "But my son taught me that silence only keeps you invisible. And people like us, we deserve to be seen." Then Eli stepped forward. "My mom is my hero. I was just trying to help her. But now, I want to help more people. Someday, I'll be back in this courtroom, not as a kid, but as a real lawyer. And I'll still be fighting for moms like mine." Applause thundered through the room. Weeks later, something arrived in their mailbox that made Maria scream so loud. Their neighbor thought she won the lottery. It was a letter from the office of the President of the United States. It read, "Dear Eli, your story touched my heart and reminded us all that courage doesn't come with age. It comes with love. America needs more defenders like you. Keep studying, keep dreaming, and keep fighting for what's right. I'm proud to call you one of our own. Sincerely, the President." Eli held the letter in both hands like it was a treasure map. "I guess I'm really a lawyer now," he whispered. Maria hugged him so tight, he almost dropped the paper. "You always were." If this story touched your soul, don't just watch. Like this video and subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that prove even the smallest voice can make the biggest noise. Sometimes, all it takes to change the world is one child who refuses to stay silent. And so, in a town that had forgotten how to dream, a little boy with a heart full of courage reminded them all, justice doesn't care how big you are, only how brave you're willing to be.